Hello, I'm Amanda. Back in 2017, I married John, the love of my life. He came from a family of men with a long legacy of sons, but our wedding felt like a dream come true, a fairy tale, with everyone celebrating our union under the warm glow of sunset. It was perfect. For a while, everything seemed perfect. In the first few years, we lived in happiness, and that joy deepened when I found out I was pregnant. "We're having a baby, John," I told him, feeling a mix of excitement and wonder. The look in his eyes when he lifted me in an embrace filled with joy is something I'll never forget. "I hope it's a girl," he whispered, "someone as beautiful and kind as her mother." Though our growing family was a source of immense happiness, things started to shift with John's mother, Linda. At first, her constant presence and advice felt like enthusiastic support, though a bit much at times, but the tone changed when we announced the gender of our baby. "A girl? Huh, a girl?" Linda remarked one evening at dinner. "Are you sure, Amanda? John's family has always had boys. Isn't this a bit unusual?" I tried to laugh it off. "We're just breaking the tradition this time." But as my pregnancy went on, Linda's intrusions became more frequent and more uncomfortable. She began showing up at our house unannounced, filling the air with unwelcome comments about how we should ensure the next baby would be a boy. "You really need to think about the family line, Amanda. Maybe a specialist would help next time," she'd suggest, her tone irritating. Despite this, I stayed calm. "We're just happy to have a healthy baby, Linda," I'd answer. When we learned that our second child was another girl, Linda's reactions became more hostile. "Another girl? Are you sure John's the father?" she snapped one day, her voice sharp, her gaze critical. "Linda, that's an awful thing to say," I exclaimed, anger rising. Before I could say more, John stepped in, his voice firm. "Mom, you've crossed the line. Amanda is my wife, and I trust her completely." "But John," she persisted, her voice accusing, "you know how important it is to have a boy. Are you sure she's being faithful?" The hurt in John's eyes struck me deep. This wasn't just about tradition, it was about trust and respect, and Linda was threatening to destroy it all with her unfounded suspicions. Things reached their breaking point during a visit when I was 8 months pregnant. Linda's cold attitude had been building since the announcement, but I never imagined it would escalate to violence. "Why can't you give John a son, Amanda?" she demanded, her voice frigid, her eyes filled with rage. "Linda, I'm not giving anyone anything. These are our children, and they're perfect," I said, trying to keep my voice steady even as fear gripped me. Suddenly, Linda slapped me hard across the face. The shock of the impact left me dazed, and before I could react, she kicked me, causing pain to shoot through my belly. "John," I screamed. John was by my side in an instant, placing himself between me and his mother. "Get out, Mom, now," he shouted, his voice full of authority. As Linda stormed out, I felt the weight of her cruelty. She had been willing to hurt me, and possibly harm her own grandchild, but John's protective stance was a lifeline for me. We knew something had to change. We needed to protect our family. Once Linda had left, the silence in our home was deafening. The once happy place now felt cold and fragile. "Are you okay? Did she hurt you or the baby?" John asked, concern flooding his face. I gently touched my belly, still shaken, and lightly rubbed my cheek where she had slapped me. "I think we're okay," I whispered. "We can't let this slide, Amanda." "I never thought she'd go this far," he said, guilt apparent in his expression. I reached for his hand and squeezed it. "It's not your fault, John. We couldn't have predicted this." John began pacing, running his hands through his hair. "I'm calling the police. She can't just attack you because she's family." Making that decision felt heavy, like we were crossing an irreversible line, but as John dialed the number, his determination was clear. Protecting our family was his top priority. "Hello, yes, I need to report an assault. My mother attacked my pregnant wife." He spoke urgently into the phone. As he explained, I couldn't help but wonder, how did things come to this? What had once been joyous family gatherings now felt like dangerous minefields. When John hung up, he sat beside me, pale and tense. "They're sending someone over. We're going to make sure she faces the consequences." Before long, the doorbell rang. 2 officers stood at the door, ready to take our statement. They listened carefully as I recounted the incident, their faces grim. "And you're sure you want to press charges?" one officer asked, his voice serious. Without hesitation, I nodded. "Yes, it's not just about me, it's about protecting our children." The officers reassured us they'd handle it, and advised us to file for a restraining order. After they left, John suggested we think about moving away, somewhere Linda couldn't find us. I think you're right, I said, considering his words, but we need to focus on getting through this first, for our daughters. That night, lying in bed, I reflected on everything that had happened, the fear, the betrayal, but what stood out the most was John's unwavering support. It made everything clear, our commitment to each other and our family would always come first. In the days that followed, we consulted a lawyer, strengthening our case against Linda. The community's response was mixed, some sympathized, while others whispered judgment. Through it all, John and I remained united, our bond stronger than ever. We knew we would survive this, we were in this together. As the court date neared, our resolve only strengthened, ready to close this painful chapter and protect the peaceful future we'd been dreaming of. Are we doing the right thing, Amanda? John asked one night, his voice filled with doubt. Pressing charges against my own mother? She hurt us, John, I replied, the weight of it all pressing down on me, and she could have hurt our girls. We need to protect our family. But the backlash, what if people don't understand? He worried, what if they think we're breaking the family apart? I squeezed his hand, offering reassurance. Some might think that, but we know the truth. We're not tearing anything apart, we're holding it together. As your lawyer, I'll need all the details about what happened, Mr. Thompson said, flipping open his notebook. The more specific, the better for the case. We recounted everything, from Linda's initial subtle behavior to her violent outburst. Mr. Thompson took notes diligently. This is a serious case of domestic assault, he said finally. Given Amanda's pregnancy, the charges are more severe. What about the community? John asked, concerned. Do you think this is going to be public? I asked, my stomach tightening with anxiety. People will talk, no doubt, Mr. Thompson answered, his voice calm but firm. But right now, your priority needs to be your safety and securing your legal protection. In the weeks that followed, the gravity of our situation hit me. News of the incident quickly spread throughout our small town, and reactions were mixed. While some neighbors offered comforting smiles and words of support, others spoke in hushed tones, their eyes full of judgment. One afternoon while shopping for groceries, I overheard a conversation between two women. Can you believe she pressed charges against her own mother-in-law, over a family dispute? One of them whispered. It wasn't just a dispute, she was attacked, the other defended me. The words stung, and I quickly hurried out of the store, my hands shaking as I carried the bags to the car. At home, John and I had a long conversation about our next steps. Maybe moving wouldn't be such a bad idea, he suggested, his voice thoughtful. A fresh start might help us. I hesitated, but this is our home, John, should we really have to leave because of her actions? He pulled me into his arms, reassuring me, we'll decide together, no matter what, as a family. As the court date loomed closer, the tension in the house grew. We went to counseling to help manage the stress and uncertainty, each session slowly piecing back together the piece that had once filled our home. We're doing the right thing, I whispered to John one night as we lay side by side, lost in our thoughts, for us, for our daughters, for our future. After the court proceedings, Linda was given a sentence that included therapy and community service. The quiet that followed felt almost surreal. It was as if a weight had lifted, and in that silence, we started to rebuild. Long evenings were spent planning, dreaming of the future we wanted to create for our daughters. One evening, John suggested, let's repaint the nursery, something bright and welcoming. I smiled at the thought. How about yellow, like sunshine? We painted together, each brushstroke a step toward healing. Our daughters played nearby, their laughter a sweet reminder of the joy we were reclaiming. It was during moments like these that the scars of the past seemed to fade, bit by bit. But healing wasn't just about physical changes, it was also about emotional recovery. We joined a support group for families who had experienced domestic violence, and it was there that I truly began to understand the depth of our healing journey. Every session, we shared our struggles and victories, finding strength in one another's stories. I'm not sure if we're moving forward some days, I admitted one evening during the group, my voice trembling. Other days, it feels like we're stuck. Marilyn, a woman in the group, nodded in empathy. Healing is messy, but look at how far you've come. You've been there for each other through everything. Her words resonated deeply with me. She was right. Despite everything, John and I had never wavered in our support for each other. We were stronger than we had ever been. Outside the group, Friends like Rachel and Mike continued to offer their unwavering support. They checked in regularly, helped with the kids, and brought over meals, their friendship a lifeline in our darkest moments. "We're so grateful for you," I said one evening, my heart full of appreciation. Rachel smiled warmly. "That's what friends are for. You'd do the same for us." Their support meant the world, but finding peace within myself was just as important. I took up journaling, pouring my thoughts, fears, and reflections onto the pages. It became my private way of making sense of everything. One night, John noticed the change. "You seem more at peace," he said, his voice full of quiet admiration. "I'm getting there," I replied. "Writing helps, talking helps, but knowing we're moving forward together is what matters most." As the months passed, the sharp edges of our trauma softened. We celebrated small milestones, our eldest daughter taking her first steps, John successfully completing a major work project. Life began to feel like more than just surviving. We were starting to thrive, building a safe, loving environment for our daughters. One evening, as we sat in our newly renovated kitchen, John raised his glass in a toast, "To new beginnings." "To us," I replied, "and to a future filled with love, peace, and joy." We embraced, our hearts full, as we realized how far we had come. Each day was a new opportunity to continue rebuilding the life we wanted for our family, and as we moved forward, we knew that the scars of the past would never define us, but rather serve as reminders of how resilient we were. That night, as we watched our daughters play in the yard, surrounded by the vibrant colors of autumn, John wrapped his arm around me. "Can you believe how quickly they're growing?" he asked. I smiled, my heart full. "It's incredible. They're so happy, John. We did this. We gave them this peace." Our journey hadn't been easy, but we had made it through. The betrayal from Linda still lingered, but it no longer controlled us. We had made the hard choice to cut ties with her, and though it hurt, I knew it was the right decision. "We've made a lot of tough choices," I said quietly. "Letting go of Linda was one of the hardest, but it was necessary, for our safety, for our peace." John nodded, his gaze steady. "It was the right choice. It's unfortunate it had to come to this, with my own mother, but we're here now, and that's what matters." We watched our daughters laughing together, carefree and full of joy, as they played in the autumn leaves. Later that night, after tucking the girls into bed, John and I sat on the porch, a pot of tea between us, discussing the future. The possibilities felt endless: trips, new projects, and watching our daughters grow into strong, confident individuals. "Our family, our rules, our happiness," John said, raising his cup in a quiet toast. "To new beginnings," I echoed, "and to a life built on love, respect, and peace." As we sat together, watching the stars twinkle overhead, I realized that the shadows of our past no longer held any power over us. The challenges we faced had brought us closer, redefining what it meant to be a family. We were no longer just surviving the storm, we were thriving in its aftermath. Under the soft night sky, with the promise of tomorrow in our hearts, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. We had faced the darkest of times together, and now, we were ready to embrace the future, full of love, courage, and unwavering faith in one another. What do you think about the decision John and I made to cut ties with Linda? Was it the only option to protect our family, or could there have been another way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stay stunned.